Here's the question. Is the Zoom H6 the best podcast recorder? I think it is. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why.
Job security for the unemployable.
Michael, you're so naughty.
Hi, I'm Michael O'Neill. I'm the host of the Solopreneur Hour Podcast. This show has been going on for 6 years, has over 10 million downloads, and I've made my living from podcasting for the last 6 years. An instrumental part of my podcast success has been these Zoom recorders. Now, this is not a paid endorsement by Zoom, but I've had so much success, first of all, with the Zoom H4n, then the Zoom H6. I have a Zoom H6 for my portable recording setup, and right here in my studio, I have a Zoom H6 plugged into my mixer, which then goes here into my Shure SM7B microphone, and it's amazing. Now, when I first started a podcast, I thought of myself right out of the gates as a professional broadcaster. So I wanted to mimic what the professional broadcasters were doing. Now, a few years later, I ended up co-hosting a show with Steelers great Hines Ward, and we got to go to the Super Bowl in San Francisco. And when I went into that Super Bowl media day, there's 250 different media outlets from all over the world, and they've got to interview people in little 10 to 15 minute chunks. They've got Jerry Rice here, they've got Cuba Gooding Jr. here, they've got celebrities and athletes. They don't have any room for error. So their recording gear can't break. It is not an option. Failure, not an option when you're in this live recording scenario and you only get one shot to interview that person you want to interview. So when I first started my show and said, I trust the Foo Fighters, I trust Aerosmith, I'm going hardware versus software. So you can record with GarageBand, you can record with Audition and Audacity and all of these other software programs. I chose to go hardware. I wanted an actual microphone with an XLR cable, I'm going to show you that in a second, into a recorder or a mixer, then a recorder, and it leaves very little room for error. There's really nothing that can fail. We've got a solid state drive here. This goes into an SD card like this, that you then plug into your computer and it just works. It very, very rarely fails. I've personally done over 1,500 episodes on various podcasts with zero failures. So durability and reliability, to me, are the first order of why you should use a Zoom H6 recorder for your podcast. And next, it's the convenience factor. So this is my little leather kit for my portable podcast setup. In fact, this is pretty cool. I still have the wristband from the AFC playoff game between the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field. That was a very cold day, but my Steelers won. So here's what I have in my kit. I've, of course, got the Zoom H6. This has been all over the world with me a couple of times. I have two Shure SM58 microphones. Now, these mics you will find on every stage all over the country. If you're a musician, you know what these mics are. First of all, they're metal. Let me open the second one so you can see. These things are metal, and they're not plastic. They are bomb-proof. You could literally go right now, probably to Craigslist, and find a couple of these that are from the 70s that work just as well as what you could get brand new. Although they're 99 bucks. So two microphones, they're $99 brand new, and they stay with me in the kit along with the Zoom H6. I have two XLR cables, one for each microphone, obviously. And I always bring a spare set of batteries because I always want to have brand new batteries if I interview somebody. I do these deep dive interviews, and sometimes I'm in a hotel lobby and it's really loud. What's really cool about a dynamic mic versus a condenser mic is that a dynamic mic rejects all of the sound outside of the microphone. So if you're not right on the mic, it rejects all of this sound here. Where that comes into play, I almost talked into the mic like this. Where that comes into play is that a lot of you guys probably have like Blue Yeti microphones, or maybe the Audio-Technica ATR 2020, which I also have above my drum set over here. The problem with those mics is that while this microphone, if you're not right on it, it doesn't pick up the noise. With the Blue Yeti microphone, you can hear a mouse fart in the next county. So if there's barking dogs or trucks driving by or babies yelling, it picks up all of that stuff. They're fine microphones, but you have to have a really, really quiet room. I happen to be in a mostly soundproofed room. Most people don't have that option unless you're recording in your closet, which, by the way, is probably the most soundproof room in your house. And it's a great place to record a podcast, but then you're stuck in your closet. So anyway, dynamic mic, and I'll actually demonstrate what it sounds like, dynamic versus condenser, a little bit later in this. So I also always bring this USB cable with me for the Zoom, and it does two really cool things once you plug it in. Number one, it can act as an SD card reader. So if your computer doesn't have an SD card slot, the Zoom becomes your SD card slot. Super cool. My laptop happens to have one. My desktop does not, so I have a little USB plug-in for that, but I could use the Zoom just as easily. Number two, and this is where it gets really cool, let's say you're traveling and somebody's interviewing you on their podcast, or you need to do a Zoom call, or you need to do a Skype call. You can plug a USB cable into this, plug it into your computer, then the Zoom becomes an interface. So you can use this microphone along with the Zoom plugged into your computer, and you can use it anywhere. So that's a really cool feature in case you are being interviewed on somebody else's podcast, or if you have to do a Skype call, or you're recording a webinar or whatever, you can use the Zoom as an interface. You don't need any other interface. The only thing that bums me out about the Zoom, and I've been asking them for this for years, if you've come to this video from my mix minus video, and mix minus effectively means that when you're talking to somebody on a computer, all of the vocals go into your mixer, but then just your vocal goes back to them. So it's the entire mix minus your voice. This doesn't have the ability to do mix minus, which is such a bummer, because if it did, you could eliminate every other piece of gear and just have the Zoom. So what I'll do now, though, is I'll demonstrate what's really cool about this. It's not only this, so this recorder is by itself is really great. You can plug 4 mics into it out of the gates, which is awesome. And you can even do compression. You can do vocal compression like a real mixer. And I'll see if I can turn that on so you can hear it. But just for reference, this is what the Zoom H6 sounds like with a Shure SM58 microphone. As you can hear, it is rich and delicious. I can snap my fingers around. I'm actually snapping my fingers now. You can hear them if I stop talking. But even in a loud environment, if there's kids running around, if I'm in a hotel lobby, in which I've taken this device a number of times, maybe 100 times in a hotel lobby. I've recorded from a plane. If you check out my podcast, I've got Planecast 1 and 2 with John Lee Dumas. I've recorded from a swimming pool. I've been in a hot tub. I've been in hotel lobbies, like I said. I've been in cars. So loud environments for this portable device, no problem whatsoever. The difference is, I alluded to before about the Blue Yeti microphones and other condenser mics. Here's the difference. So right now, again, I'm snapping my fingers, and you can barely hear it. Like, you can hear that there's finger snapping in the background, but it's not that distracting, and you can definitely tell that you could listen to this and not be completely distracted by, again, a truck, a dog, a kid. But if I switch over to the condenser mic that comes with the Zoom H6, so this actually has a modular microphone that you can fit onto the top of it. You see that little XY mic there? If I turn that mic on instead of this dynamic mic, here's the difference in sound. This, in contrast, is what in contrast, is what the condenser mic sounds like. You can hear when I snap my fingers, you hear everything. If I move my recording setup, if I drop this microphone, if I tap this one, if I move this thing, if I knock my monitor a little, everything around me is being picked up by, wait, listen. It's a plane. Do you hear that? That's a plane flying overhead. If that did not illustrate what I'm trying to illustrate here. Now, those mics can be fine. The Audio-Technica AT2020, any Blue microphone. But the problem is they don't take into account how loud the rest of our environments are. So this little mic here, this XY mic, comes with the Zoom H6. For obvious reasons, I've never used it because of how different and better the dynamic microphone sounds. So this is why we don't want condenser mics. I'm going back to the dynamic now. This is what the dynamic mic sounds like. It's just such a massive difference. So this is the Shure SM58. Again, the venerable SM58. It sounds amazing. I threw my headphones on so I could hear myself while I'm being recorded here. But the bottom line is, if you want a podcast and you don't want to deal with all the gear and all the tech and that kind of thing, yes, there are quote unquote easier ways to do it. You get a USB microphone, you plug it in your computer, you hit record. I would argue that this is actually an easier solution than that. There's settings, computer software crashes. This thing is just hitting record. You know it's recording because you see the red light on. You hear it in your ears. You hear what the destination sounds like, and that's really important. So as I'm recording this video right now, I can actually hear what the SD card is hearing. It's in my ears right now, so I know it sounds fantastic. So again, up to you, but to me, the Zoom H6 is kind of the holy grail for podcast recording. It's super easy to use. We use a teeny little bit of it when it comes to podcasting versus what the actual capabilities of the machine are. But it's so versatile that even if I wanted to, I could get a shotgun mic attachment, get a hot shoe mount, and put it on top of my Canon M50 camera that I'm recording right now and get killer sound right to an SD card that I just really easily sync up in Final Cut Pro. So it's so versatile. It sounds fantastic. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you're going to start a podcast, you plan on interviewing people not only at your house with Zoom or Skype, but actually with microphones out in the world. This setup, Zoom H6, 2 Shure SM58s, done. You are done thinking about it for years and years and years. Even if some newer technology comes out, I don't know how it could be better than this. This is too easy, and it's too easy to use, and you're done. So with that, you guys, I really appreciate your time. If you want to learn how to set up a mixer for a podcast using Mix Minus, I've got a great video on that. And if you're a newer podcaster, or even if you're a veteran podcaster who wants a few more tips, I've got 6 things to never do when recording your podcast. That's another video on my channel. Until then, keep making awesome podcasts. Listen to the Solopreneur Hour, and I'll talk to you next time.